What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, January 15th, 2026, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 15:15 Eastern Time here in the United States, and I wanted to update you guys on the situation with Iran. So yesterday and last night, we heard almost 100 U.S. nuclear targeting codes transmitted by U.S. Strategic Command. And the only reason U.S. Strategic Command would transmit that many nuclear targeting codes is if we were about to do something like strike Iran. We heard numerous high priority nuclear codes, which are known as Skymaster messages. They were broadcasted first in the afternoon, then again in the evening, and then again later on near midnight Eastern Time. Here we have an example of one of these high priority nuclear codes known as a Skymaster message. These are the highest priority codes right before the actual order to launch nukes from the president. So take a listen.
Skymaster, this is cell 13 on 11175, over. Skymaster, this is cell 13 on 11175, over. Skymaster, one message of 4 items follows. Stand by. Skymaster, one message of 4 items follows. Stand by. Papa, Whiskey, Foxtrot, Hotel. I say again, one message of 4 items follows. Stand by. Papa, Whiskey, Foxtrot, Hotel. This completes one message of 4 items. This is cell 13 out.
So that was a Skymaster message. They're very rare. And we're hearing some reports that Trump apparently called off an attack last night. And I can't confirm that 100%. We're hearing conflicting reports that basically the bombers were on their way, but Trump called them back at the last minute. I personally don't believe that based on the number of Skymaster messages and high priority codes that we heard last night. We also heard what potentially could have been bombers airborne communicating on the radio frequency used by U.S. Strategic Command. That's the same frequency you just heard this Skymaster message on. That's the primary U.S. nuclear war frequency. We heard potentially aircraft with the call signs Gory 11, Gory 12, Mercy 21, and Mercy 22. So those could have been actual bombers in the air. It's hard to say, but I will monitor the situation live, and I will be back live tonight with some live coverage. And the New York Times reported that apparently Trump was advised that a large U.S. strike on Iran would be unlikely to topple the regime and could trigger a wider war. So he is now waiting to see how Iran handles the protests before deciding what to do. Officials say a major attack would require more U.S. forces in the region to protect troops and allies like Israel, while smaller strikes might symbolically help protesters but won't change the crackdown. Trump has not made a final decision but ordered military assets to be ready. So there you have it. Trump has not made a final decision. And Senator Lindsey Graham commented about the reports suggesting that Trump would not attack Iran. He said all such headlines are examples of reports that are beyond inaccurate. The circumstances around the necessary decisive action to be taken against the evil Iranian regime have nothing to do with President Trump's will or determination. Nothing could be further from the truth. Quite the opposite. Stay tuned. Okay, so Lindsey Graham saying stay tuned, and the reports that Trump chickened out is quite the opposite. Okay, so my guess is that Trump is going to strike after the UN Security Council meeting, which is ongoing right now. I have it broadcasting live in my 24/7 stream. You can listen to it. They're obviously going to want to give diplomacy a chance. They're going to want to give Iran a chance to surrender, just like they did with Maduro. Everybody was saying that Trump wasn't going to do anything with Maduro, and then they went in and captured him. Okay, so maybe they're going to do something similar with Khomeini. I don't know. We do know that the aircraft carrier strike group is moving from the South China Sea to the Middle East. It just left the South China Sea yesterday. It's probably going to take a week or two for it to get to the Middle East, but I don't know if that's going to really affect the timeline of strikes. We heard one of the naval commanders of the U.S. Navy say yesterday that the aircraft carriers can reach anywhere in the world within 2 weeks, but that military operations and contingencies are not related to aircraft carrier movements. In other words, they can strike Iran without waiting for the carrier, okay? And remember yesterday that the U.S. military evacuated all bases in the Middle East, especially the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. And we're hearing reports that last night the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with Trump on the phone, and he apparently asked Trump to delay any plans for a U.S. military strike on Iran. This was reported by the New York Times, so apparently Israel was not yet ready to strike Iran, and they want to get their offenses and defenses ready. And Canada's foreign minister said that a Canadian citizen died in Iran while in the custody of Iranian authorities recently. And the U.S. Treasury imposed new sanctions on senior Iranian security officials and financial networks, citing their role in a violent crackdown on nationwide protests. And we're hearing that the bodies of victims in the Iran protests, the protesters that are being killed by the regime, are reportedly being stored in fruit and vegetable refrigeration units after hospitals ran out of space. In some cases, families identified severely wounded relatives inside those units. Witnesses say armed forces on the streets include Afghans and Arabs brought in by the regime. Heavy machine guns have been deployed along main roads. Okay, so there is a massive response now by the Iranian regime. And here you can see some pictures of the Iranian security forces patrolling the streets in vehicles. Here you can see them in some kind of armored vehicle, okay, fully armed with, I don't know what kind of rifles they have there. It looks like one has a grenade launcher, one has some kind of long rifle. And then here we have a pickup truck. These could be the Taliban. I mean, they could be anybody. Okay, and then here we have, looks like an official Iranian police vehicle here. Okay, but the situation is spiraling out of control in Iran. And this afternoon, we have a lot of sub-hunters off the coast of the U.S., off the west coast. We have one sub-hunter patrolling the entire coast of Washington. And this is significant because we actually have our most important submarine base in Washington, Bangor Kitsap, which is where we keep 2/3 of our nuclear-armed submarines. The Ohio-class submarines are stationed there. Also, we have the Trident missile storage facility where we store the submarine-launched ballistic missiles that they can fire if necessary, nuclear missiles. Then we also have this sub-hunter here that was looping off the coast of San Francisco. And then we have another one off the coast of Los Angeles. So I don't know if there's a threat to the west coast from Russian or Chinese subs, but this is very unusual. We also have a high priority reconnaissance plane looping over the Rockies right now, and what's interesting is it was deployed by U.S. Strategic Command. Now, my guess is that it's patrolling the Mexican border, because you can see here it's flying parallel to the Mexican border. These planes send intelligence directly to the president and our top generals, and there's only 2 of them in the U.S. Air Force. So if one of them is deployed somewhere, it means the president needs a closer look at something. And we're hearing that Romania and New Zealand have now urged their citizens to leave Iran, and this is coming after Poland, Italy, and several other European countries told their citizens to leave Iran. There were some interesting reports last night of fighter jet activity in eastern Iraq. There were some videos posted to social media of fighter jets flying overhead in various locations of eastern Iraq, up and down the border from northern Iraq to southern Iraq, along the border with Iran. So I don't know if those were Iranian jets that were patrolling the border with Iraq, because remember, they issued a NOTAM last night that closed the airspace of Iran for several hours yesterday evening. So it's possible those were Iranian fighter jets patrolling their airspace for any kind of missiles coming in to Iran, or they could have been Israeli fighter jets or American fighter jets. We don't know, but we do know there were a large number of fighter jets recorded over eastern Iraq last night. And the U.S. embassies in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait have issued warnings for Americans to stay away from U.S. military bases. And we're hearing that Iran's IRGC forces have entered the highest state of alert, and that the Iranian Central Air Defense Command is also at the highest level of alert. And we're hearing that U.S. Central Command prepared military options for President Trump, which were presented to him in recent days and now have been refined to more align with his objectives regarding Iran, according to a U.S. official and another person familiar with the discussions who spoke with NBC News. And we're hearing that U.S. President Trump told his national security team that he would want any U.S. military action in Iran to deliver a swift and decisive blow to the regime and not spark a sustained war that dragged on for weeks or months, according to a U.S. official. And the U.S. Embassy in Qatar said it advised its personnel to exercise increased caution and limit non-essential travel to the Al Udeid Air Base. And the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem issued a security alert telling Americans in Israel to review any travel plans in case of disruptions and make appropriate decisions for themselves and their families. We're also hearing that bomb shelters have opened in parts of Israel, even though the Israeli Home Front Command did not change their alert and tell bomb shelters to get ready and people to get ready. But some of these local leaders in Israel are being proactive, and they've already opened bomb shelters in parts of Israel, okay? And the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Iran has negotiated with the U.S. several times, but calls each round a very negative experience, asking why should we negotiate with the United States. And he also said that Iran has every right to conduct nuclear enrichment. And he also said, don't make the mistake you made in June. You failed in June, and you'll get the same result. That's what he said to Trump. So basically, the Iranian foreign minister just took a dump on Trump. Okay, I don't think Trump's going to like that. So I think we're going to strike Iran potentially tonight, potentially tomorrow night. I don't have a crystal ball, but it's not going to be too long from now, considering the number of high priority nuclear codes we heard last night. So the instructions were given out and everything is basically in position. And the Senate voted 51 to 50 on Wednesday to effectively block a resolution that would have prevented President Trump from using military force in Venezuela or Iran without congressional approval. So if you remember, the Democrats proposed this bill that would require President Trump to get approval from Congress anytime he wants to strike anywhere, and that was blocked 51 to 50, so pretty close, guys. Basically just one vote in favor to block that Democrat resolution. Trump stated yesterday that he had a very good call Wednesday morning with the president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez. She's the acting president. Trump stated that many topics were discussed, including oil, minerals, trade, and national security. President Trump will have a closed-door meeting today with Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Machado. So that's pretty interesting. If you remember, she was the person that they were going to put in Venezuela, but Trump said initially that the people of Venezuela wouldn't respect her at this time. So we'll have to wait and see what he does. And the Trump administration is weighing the option of deploying private military contractors rather than U.S. troops to safeguard Venezuela's oil and energy facilities, according to CNN. And a man was shot yesterday by an ICE agent in Minneapolis after coming under attack by a suspect who allegedly was swinging a shovel, according to authorities. The suspect is believed to be Venezuelan and is listed in stable conditions. So the guy tried to attack the ICE agent with a shovel, and he was shot in the leg. And then there were some riots after that last night. So we still got to keep an eye on the Minneapolis situation. We know that all these nationwide riots are always born in Minneapolis. Okay, you remember the Minneapolis riots after the death of George Floyd and what happened? It spread across the country. So that could happen again in the coming weeks, I think, especially as we head into the warmer months. Spring and summer, I think, are going to be absolutely crazy, and I think we're going to see some nationwide riots like we did after George Floyd. I think it's coming, guys, so get prepared for that, okay? And Trump commented on Greenland yesterday. He said, "I can't rely on Denmark being able to defend itself on its own." They talked about it. They even added an extra patrol, and they were serious about it. They deployed an additional dog sled, then another one, but that's not going to do the trick. So basically kind of mocking Denmark, saying that they just, only have dog sleds to defend themselves from Russia. He also said, if we don't go in, Russia and China are going to go in. That's not a thing Denmark can do about it. Or there's not a thing Denmark can do about it, but we can do everything about it, okay? And the Danish Defense Minister, Truls Poulsen, said, "We consider it unlikely that one NATO country would attack another NATO country. The standing order, as it has always been in modern times, is that if one is attacked, one must defend the kingdom." So he's saying he doesn't think Trump would actually attack Greenland, but if they do, then Denmark will defend Greenland. And the U.S. is pressing Mexico to allow U.S. forces to join raids on fentanyl labs, arguing it would strengthen the fight against drug cartels. The proposal, renewed under President Trump, would put U.S. Special Forces or CIA officers alongside Mexican troops. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum has rejected the idea, citing sovereignty and instead offering more intelligence sharing. And we had a lot of reconnaissance over eastern Poland last night for some reason. We had a Swedish reconnaissance plane patrolling the border of Poland, and Ukraine and Belarus. And then we also had a U.S. Air Force recon drone patrolling the border of Poland with Belarus and Russia. So something's definitely brewing over here. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight, probably closer to 10 p.m. Eastern time, maybe earlier, to cover everything going on. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 P's: prepare, practice, and persevere. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply is doing a massive sale on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to use my link. It's in the description below this video. It's preparewithNYPrepper.com. So they're selling their 3-month emergency food kit at 30% off. Plus, they're going to throw in an additional month of food. So that's 4 months of food. And the normal price would be $944. And they're selling it at just under $700 for 4 months of food. And this food has a 25-year shelf life. And it's all packed into rugged, watertight buckets that don't take up a lot of space in your home. And the food is obviously nutritious, which is very important for surviving any kind of SHTF situation. You can also use this food for camping and traveling. But use the link preparewithNYPrepper.com to get a free month of emergency food with your 3-month emergency food kit from NYPrepper Supply, all at 30% off, just $700 for 4 months of food. So use the link preparewithNYPrepper.com to get the deal, and the link is in the description below this video.